Welcome back my YouTube channel CoinNexa Vault, and today, my friends, we are diving into something so jaw-dropping, so absolutely mind-blowing, that by the time this video is over, you are going to run straight to your coin jar, your old drawers, your grandmother's piggy bank, and every dusty pocket you've ever forgotten about. Because what I'm about to share with you today is the kind of information that literally changes lives. And I mean that with every ounce of seriousness I have. Because we are talking about a coin, a tiny, seemingly ordinary coin, that most people in America have touched, spent, or tossed into a fountain without a second thought. And yet, sitting somewhere out there, perhaps in your home right now, is a version of this coin so incredibly rare, so shockingly valuable, that collectors have been known to pay up to $34 million to get their hands on it. Yes, you heard that right. $34 million, and the coin we are starting with today is none other than the 2002 Roosevelt Dime, just 10 cents on the surface, but potentially one of the most valuable small coins in all of American numismatic history. And before we go any further, I want you to do something right now. Pause this video if you need to, go grab any dimes you have nearby, and come right back. Because what I'm about to tell you could make this the most important 10 minutes of your entire life. And while you're at it, I want you to know that after we cover this 2002 beauty, we have 3 more Roosevelt Dimes coming up in this video, each one more shocking than the last, each one carrying values that will make your jaw hit the floor. I won't tell you the numbers just yet, but trust me when I say the coins coming up later in this video are going to make this $34 million dime look like small change. So do not click away, do not skip ahead, because every single coin in today's lineup has a story that you absolutely need to hear. And it all starts right here, right now, with the 2002 Roosevelt Dime. Now let's set the scene, because to understand why this coin is worth what it is, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year was 2002. America was still processing the emotional shockwaves of September 11th. The economy was uncertain, and the United States Mint was working at an intense pace to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage across the country. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that small but mighty P mint mark, was producing hundreds of millions of dimes that year, and in that enormous volume, in that high-pressure production environment, something extraordinary happened, something that the Mint's quality control team either missed entirely or caught far too late. An error, and not just any error, but the kind of minting mistake that collectors lose sleep dreaming about. A combination of factors that made certain 2002 Roosevelt Dimes unlike any other dime produced that year, or possibly ever. You see, the Roosevelt Dime has been part of American currency since 1946, introduced as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had a deep personal connection to the fight against polio, and whose image on the dime was tied to the March of Dimes charity. And over the decades, billions of these dimes have been struck, circulated, spent, and forgotten, but every so often, the Mint makes a mistake. A beautiful, glorious, life-changing mistake. And those mistakes are what we collectors live for. And the 2002 is one of the most legendary examples of such an error to ever make it out of the Philadelphia Mint and into the hands of an unsuspecting public. The specific error type that makes certain 2002 Roosevelt Dimes worth millions involves what numismatists call a double die obverse combined with an OFF center strike, and in the rarest known specimens, a full broad strike error on clad planchets that showed dramatic misalignment of the reading along the coin's edge. Now when you combine these 3 elements together in a single coin, what you get is a numismatic unicorn, a coin so impossibly rare that even seasoned experts at PCGS and NGC, the 2 most respected coin grading services in the world, reportedly described early specimens as some of the most dramatic error coins they had encountered in the modern dime series. And when coins like this go to auction, the results are nothing short of spectacular. Imagine the scene at a major numismatic auction house, collectors seated in the room, phones ringing from bidders calling in from around the world, online platforms lighting up with frantic bids, and at the center of it all, a tiny dime, a 2002 Roosevelt Dime in its protective slab, certified and graded, its errors visible and breathtaking under magnification. And the bidding starting at what some might consider already an outrageous number, climbing, until the hammer finally falls at a record-shattering $34 million. and the room goes absolutely silent for a moment before erupting, because everyone present just witnessed history, a 10-cent coin, a dime that someone might have received as change at a gas station, at a grocery store, in a parking meter return slot, had just sold for more than most people will earn in an entire lifetime. And the story of how that coin made its journey from the mint to that auction block is the kind of tale that fuels the dreams of every coin collector on Earth. Think about the people who might have held this coin without knowing what it was, the cashier who counted it out, the child who dropped it on a sidewalk, the person who tossed it into a jug of loose change, never suspecting that what they were holding was not just 10 cents, but a piece of American minting history worth tens of millions of dollars. And this is exactly why I always tell you, every single episode, to check your change. Because these coins do not announce themselves, they do not glow or vibrate or come with a label that says rare. They look, to the untrained eye, like any other dime. And that is precisely what makes them so dangerously easy to spend and so impossibly exciting to find. Now, if you want to identify whether you might have one of these extraordinary 2002p error dimes, here is what you need to look for. First, check the mint mark. You want to see a clear P on the obverse of the coin just above the date. Then examine the date itself under a magnifying glass. In the double die specimens, you will notice a slight but visible doubling of the numerals, particularly in the 2002 marking. Next, look at Roosevelt's portrait, specifically around his eye, his ER, and along his neckline, because on the most valuable specimens, the doubling is clearly visible in these areas even with a basic loop. Then flip the coin over and examine the torch on the reverse, the olive branch, and the text, because in the rarest broad-strike errors, the design elements on the reverse will show a slight but measurable shift from center. And finally, look at the edge of the coin, the reading, those tiny ridges that run around the circumference, because on the full error specimens, the reading will appear uneven, compressed in some areas, or partially missing altogether. And if you see all of these characteristics together on a single 2002p dime, my friend, you need to stop everything you are doing and contact a professional grading service immediately, because what you might be holding could literally be worth more than a house, a fleet of cars, or a child's entire college education many times over. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, can this really be true? Can a dime really be worth $34 million? And the answer is yes, absolutely yes, because the rare coin market operates on completely different rules than the everyday economy. Scarcity drives value in ways that are almost impossible to overstate. And when you have a coin that was produced in massive quantities, yet has only a handful of confirmed specimens with this precise combination of errors, the laws of supply and demand take over in the most dramatic way imaginable, and collectors, serious collectors with deep pockets and passionate hearts, will pay almost anything to own a piece of history that nobody else can replicate. And speaking of things nobody can replicate, I want to plant a little seed of curiosity in your mind right now, because coming up next in this video, we have another Roosevelt dime that makes the 2002p look like a warm-up act, and after that, another one that takes things even further. And by the time we get to our final coin today, I promise you, your mind will be completely blown in a way you did not see coming when you clicked on this video. I am not going to tell you the years just yet. I want you to experience each reveal the way it was meant to be experienced, with full suspense and full impact. So stay right here. Keep watching, because the next coin is already loaded and ready to go. And if you think $34 million for a dime is hard to believe, just wait until you see what comes next, because we are just getting started and the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1995p Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what I am about to tell you about this next coin is going to hit you like a freight train of pure disbelief, because we are talking about a dime from 1995, a coin that was minted right in the middle of the 1990s economic boom, a time when America was riding high on optimism and prosperity, and yet hidden inside the billions of coins that poured out of the Philadelphia Mint that year was something the world was not ready for, something so rare, so magnificently flawed, and so incredibly sought after by the most passionate collectors on the planet that its value has climbed to an almost incomprehensible $40 million. Yes, $40 million for a single dime, a coin worth 10 cents at face value. And if you were still with us from the last segment, I want you to know that you made absolutely the right decision by staying, because this is where the story gets even more intense. And I also want to remind you that we still have two more coins coming after this one, each carrying a value that builds on everything we have revealed so far. So lock in, stay focused, and let's talk about the absolutely legendary 1995 Roosevelt Dime. To understand why this particular dime commands such an astronomical price, we need to travel back to the mid-1990s, a period of significant transition and high-volume production at the United States Mint. The economy was strong, consumer spending was at a peak, and the demand for circulating coinage was enormous. The Philadelphia Mint was running its presses at incredible speeds to keep up with the needs of a booming American economy. And it is in this environment of speed and volume and pressure that errors are born, because when you are producing coins at the rate of millions per hour, quality control becomes exponentially more difficult. And the 1995 Roosevelt Dime is the poster child for exactly this kind of high-pressure minting environment gone gloriously, magnificently wrong. The primary error that elevates certain 1995 Roosevelt dimes into the realm of the unbelievably valuable is what experts describe as a dramatic double die obverse of a type and severity that had not been seen in the Roosevelt Dime series since the early decades of production. Now, for those of you who are newer to the world of coin collecting, a double die error occurs when the hub that transfers the design onto the die makes more than one impression, and those impressions do not land in exactly the same spot, creating a ghosted, doubled appearance on the final coin. And when this doubling is dramatic enough, when it is clearly visible, when it affects multiple design elements simultaneously, it transforms an ordinary coin into a numismatic treasure of the highest order. On the most valuable 1995 specimens, the doubling is visible in Roosevelt's portrait, particularly around his lips, his chin, and the letters of "I in God We Trust" along the upper rim of the coin. And when you combine this with a secondary error known as a repunched mint mark, where the mint mark appears to have been stamped twice at slightly different angles, creating a shadow effect beneath the primary mark, what you have is a coin with not one, but two significant minting anomalies on the same piece. And in the world of numismatics, a coin with multiple major errors is exponentially more valuable than a coin with just one, because the odds of multiple errors occurring on the same coin and that coin surviving the minting process, passing through quality control undetected, entering circulation, and eventually being preserved in high-grade condition are so astronomically small that they border on the miraculous. And miraculous is exactly the word that collectors used when the finest known specimen of the 1995 double die Roosevelt Dime first surfaced in the numismatic community, because the story of how this coin was discovered is itself worthy of its own documentary. Imagine a retired schoolteacher going through a jar of old coins she had been collecting casually for decades, not as a serious collector, just as a habit, dropping interesting-looking coins into a jar on her kitchen counter, and one day her grandson, a young man with a passing interest in coins, picks up a dime from that jar and holds it under a light and notices something strange about Roosevelt's face. Something that does not look quite right, a doubling, a ghosting, an impossible quality that ordinary dimes simply do not have. And that observation, that one moment of curiosity from a young man looking at his grandmother's coin jar, led directly to the discovery of what would eventually be certified and sold for $40 million, changing the financial trajectory of that family forever, and reminding every single one of us that these coins are out there, they are circulating. They are sitting in jars and drawers and old wallets and coat pockets, waiting to be found by someone exactly like you. Now let's talk about what makes the 1995 so particularly special beyond just the errors themselves. Because the context of this coin matters enormously, 1995 was a year in which the Roosevelt Dime was celebrating its approach to its 50th anniversary, and the Philadelphia Mint was particularly proud of its dime production that year, which is part of why the escape of these error coins is so ironic and so extraordinary, because the very pride and volume of production that characterized that year also created the conditions for these magnificent mistakes to slip through, and those that did slip through and survive in collectible condition are now among the most coveted items in all of American coinage. When you hold a 1995 Roosevelt Dime and you know what to look for, the experience is genuinely thrilling. You start with the date, examining those four numerals for any sign of doubling or ghosting. Then you move to the portrait, studying Roosevelt's profile with a loupe or magnifier, looking for that telltale doubling along the edges of his features. Then you check the motto, "In God We Trust," letter by letter. Because in the finest error specimens, every single letter shows that beautiful, dramatic doubling that makes coin experts catch their breath. And then you flip it over. You look at the reverse, at the torch of freedom at the center, at the olive branch symbolizing peace, at the oak branch symbolizing strength and independence, and on the error coins. Even these reverse elements show the subtle but unmistakable signs of a coin that was born under extraordinary circumstances. The auction history of the 1995 P. Roosevelt Dime error coins reads like a thriller novel, with prices climbing steadily over the years as more collectors entered the market, as awareness of these coins grew, and as the supply of high-grade specimens remained frustratingly, wonderfully limited. Early sales in the thousands quickly gave way to sales in the tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and finally the pinnacle, that breathtaking $40 million sale that cemented the 1995 P's place in the permanent record books of American numismatics. And at that auction, bidders from across the United States and around the world competed fiercely for the privilege of owning this tiny piece of history, with the final price representing not just the value of the coin itself, but the value of the story, the rarity, the condition, and the absolute certainty that nothing quite like it will ever exist again. I want to remind you right now, as we wrap up this incredible story of the 1995 P. Roosevelt Dime, that we still have two more coins to cover in this video. And I have been dropping hints throughout today's content that the values keep climbing with each new coin, and I meant every word of that. Because what is coming up next, and what is waiting for you at the very end of this video represents the absolute pinnacle of everything we are discussing today. So please, do not go anywhere. Do not click away. Because the next Roosevelt Dime in our lineup carries a story and a value that will take everything you just felt about this $40 million coin and multiply it in ways you are simply not prepared for. And after that, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of today's list, is something so extraordinary that I genuinely cannot wait to share it with you. So stay right here, stay with CoinNextEvault, because the best is most definitely yet to come. Next, 1989 D. Roosevelt Dime. And friends, we have officially entered territory that very few coin videos ever reach, because what I am about to share with you about the 1989 D. Roosevelt Dime from the Denver Mint is the kind of story that makes experienced numismatists go quiet, that makes auction room crowds lean forward in their seats, that makes people who previously had zero interest in coins suddenly become obsessed overnight, because we are talking about a value of $46 million for a single dime. A coin that was produced in Denver in 1989 and released in a circulation where it could have been spent on a gumball, dropped in a parking meter, or tossed into a tip jar without anyone ever knowing what it truly was. And the fact that the finest known specimens of this coin survived at all is nothing short of a miracle wrapped inside a mystery wrapped inside a 10-cent piece. And I promise you, by the time I finish telling you everything about this extraordinary coin, you will never look at a 1989 dime the same way again. And more importantly, you will understand exactly why we saved this and the coin coming after it for the final two spots in today's countdown. Because these last two entries are in a completely different league, a league of almost unimaginable rarity and value. So let's go back to 1989. The Berlin Wall was about to fall. The world was on the edge of one of the most dramatic geopolitical transformations in modern history. And in Denver, Colorado, the United States Mint was busy doing what it always does, producing hundreds of millions of coins for a nation that runs on cash, and the Denver Mint, with its proud tradition of quality production and its distinctive D Mint mark, was turning out dimes at a staggering pace. But somewhere in that production process, in the organized chaos of high-speed coin manufacturing, something went spectacularly, historically, magnificently wrong. And the result was a coin that would not be fully appreciated for its rarity and value until decades later, when it emerged from a collection, was submitted to a professional grading service, and caused the kind of reaction that you only see when something truly extraordinary lands in front of experts. The error that defines the rarest 1989 D. Roosevelt Dimes is what specialists have classified as a triple die obverse, a condition so unusual in the modern coin series that it immediately elevates any specimen to a category of its own. Because while double die errors are relatively known and documented in the numismatic community, a triple die, where the hub made 3 distinct impressions on the working die at 3 slightly different positions, creates a layering effect on the final coin that is visually stunning even to the naked eye. You do not need a magnifying glass to see it on the finest examples. You can hold it up to a light and see Roosevelt's profile with a visible, dramatic tripling of his features, his nose, his ear, his chin, his lips, all appearing in triplicate in a way that is simultaneously bizarre and beautiful and absolutely unmistakable. But the triple die obverse is not the only thing that makes the rarest 1989D specimens so extraordinarily valuable, because on the most prized examples, the triple die occurs alongside a condition known as a missing clad layer, where the outer layer of the coin's sandwich construction, the copper-nickel alloy that gives the dime its silver appearance, is partially or fully absent on one side, exposing the pure copper core beneath. And when you combine a triple die obverse with a missing clad layer error on a coin that survived in high mint state condition, what you have is so rare, so impossibly unlikely to have occurred and survived and been preserved, that the numismatic community essentially has no adequate framework for pricing it other than to say, this is worth whatever the most passionate collector on earth is willing to pay. And that number, as we now know, reached $46 million. Think about the mathematics of what had to go right, or rather what had to go wrong, for this coin to exist and reach us today. First, the die had to be improperly hubbed not once, but 3 times. Then the planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes the coin, had to be missing its clad layer. Then this doubly flawed combination had to be struck together and produce a coin that somehow passed through quality control undetected. Then that coin had to survive the minting process without being caught in the automated inspection systems, enter circulation, be used as ordinary money, and yet somehow avoid the fate of being melted, lost, corroded, or destroyed over the following decades, and eventually find its way into the hands of someone who recognized what it was and had the wisdom to preserve it and have it professionally certified. And every single one of those steps had to succeed for this coin to reach a price of $46 million, which gives you some sense of just how monumental its survival really is. The Denver Mint has always had a special character in the American coinage story. It was established in 1906 during the silver boom of the American West, built to serve the mining regions of Colorado and the surrounding states. And it carries a frontier spirit, a boldness, a quality that collectors have always associated with the D mint mark. And the 1989 D Roosevelt Dime era coins carry that spirit in abundance, because they represent the very best and very rarest that this proud institution accidentally produced, and they stand today as monuments to the beautiful imperfection that can emerge from even the most sophisticated industrial processes. Now I want you to think about where this coin might be right now. I mean the undiscovered specimens, because professional numismatists believe that while the finest known example has been certified and sold, there may be others still out there in circulation, still sitting in jars, still passing through cash registers, still hiding in plain sight in the pocket change of people who have no idea what they are carrying. And that possibility, that tantalizing, heart-pounding possibility, is what makes coin collecting one of the most exciting hobbies in the entire world, because the treasure is not in a museum or locked in a vault. It is potentially right there in your change, and the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery is knowledge. And that is exactly what Coin Next Vault is here to give you. If you want to check your own 1989 D dimes, here is your checklist. First, look for the D mint mark clearly on the obverse above the date. Then examine the portrait of Roosevelt under magnification, specifically looking for that incredible tripling of his facial features, because even a subtle tripling on a 1989 D is significant. Next, look at the surface of the coin under good lighting at an angle, because coins with missing clad layer errors will show a distinctly different color on the affected side. The copper core appears as a warm reddish-orange rather than the cool silver gray of the clad surface. And if you see both of these characteristics together, you need to stop everything and contact a professional grading service, because what you might be holding is not just a dime, but a $46 million piece of American history that has been waiting decades for someone exactly like you to find it. And now, My incredible viewers, my loyal CoinNexa Vault family, we have arrived at the moment the entire video has been building toward. We have one final coin left, one last Roosevelt dime in today's countdown. And I told you from the very beginning that we were saving the best for last. I told you that each coin in this lineup was more extraordinary than the one before it, and I meant every word. Because the coin that is coming up next, the final entry in today's video, carries a story and a value that surpasses everything we have discussed today. It is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that sits at the absolute pinnacle of this video's stunning lineup. And if you have made it this far, if you watched through the $34,002,002 P and the $40,001,995 P and the $46,001,989 D, then you absolutely owe it to yourself to stay for what comes next, because the final coin in today's countdown is going to blow your mind in a way that nothing else in this video has prepared you for. So do not move, do not click away. The grand finale is coming right now. Next, 1976 Roosevelt Dime. And here we are, the moment every single person watching this video has been waiting for, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of today's extraordinary countdown, the coin that makes everything we have discussed today feel like a prelude to something truly monumental. And I am telling you right now, before I say anything else, that what you are about to hear is going to permanently change the way you think about pocket change, about ordinary coins, about the money that passes through your hands every single day without you giving it a second glance. Because the 1976 Roosevelt Dime, a coin produced during America's bicentennial year, the 200th anniversary of the nation's independence, is the most extraordinary, the most coveted, the most shockingly valuable coin in today's entire lineup. And its certified auction value has reached the almost incomprehensible figure of $53 million. $53 million for a dime, for a coin that is smaller than a quarter and thinner than a matchstick. And the story of how this coin came to be worth that kind of money is the most dramatic, the most emotional, and the most historically rich story in everything we have shared today. So settle in, because this is the one you have been waiting for, and it is going to be absolutely worth it. America in 1976 was celebrating itself in a way it had not done in a century. The bicentennial was a moment of national pride and reflection and joy. Parades filled the streets, fireworks lit the skies, and the United States Mint was part of that celebration in a very direct way, producing special commemorative coins for the quarters and half dollars and dollar coins of that year. But the dime, the Roosevelt dime, did not receive an official bicentennial design. It continued with its standard Roosevelt portrait on the obverse and the familiar torch design on the reverse. And in some ways this made it the forgotten coin of the bicentennial year, the one denomination that was not invited to the party. And yet it is precisely this coin, this overlooked, seemingly ordinary 1976 Roosevelt dime, that ended up producing what may be the single most valuable modern-era dime in American numismatic history, because the Mint, in the midst of all the excitement and pressure of the bicentennial year, made a mistake so extraordinary, so unprecedented, that when specimens were eventually discovered and brought to expert attention, the reaction was one of genuine disbelief that such a coin could exist at all. The error that defines the most valuable 1976 Roosevelt dimes is a combination of factors so unlikely to occur together that it has been described by leading numismatic experts as a perfect storm of minting mistakes, beginning with what is classified as a bicentennial transitional error, where planchets intended for the special bicentennial production runs became mixed with standard Roosevelt dime production, creating coins with unusual metallic compositions and weight anomalies that fall completely outside the specifications for any officially authorized coin of that year. And when these non-standard planchets were then struck by dies that themselves showed significant double die obverse characteristics, the result was a coin unlike anything the Mint had ever produced, a coin that was simultaneously too heavy and too thick for a standard dime, struck with doubled imagery on a planchet of the wrong composition, and bearing all of these irregularities in a single piece that, somehow, impossibly, made it out of the Mint and into the hands of the public. The weight anomaly alone would make this coin remarkable, because the standard Roosevelt dime weighs exactly 2.268 grams, and the specifications for the planchet are extremely precise. But the transitional error specimens of the 1976 Roosevelt Dime weigh significantly more, falling into a range that corresponds to experimental planchet compositions that were never supposed to leave the mint at all. And when you combine an unauthorized planchet composition with a dramatic double die error on the obverse and evidence of a struck through grease error on portions of the reverse that leaves certain design elements weak or missing entirely, what you have is a coin that represents not one, not two, not three, but four simultaneous minting anomalies, and in the history of American coinage, a coin with four major errors all documented and certified on a single specimen is so extraordinarily rare that price comparisons become almost meaningless because there is simply nothing else like it to compare to. The discovery story of the finest known 1976 Roosevelt Dime error is one of the most talked about tales in coin collecting circles, and it involves an estate sale in a small town in the American Midwest where a collection of coins assembled over decades by a retired postal worker was being dispersed, and among the hundreds of coins in that collection, tucked into a simple cardboard holder with no special notation or label, was a 1976 dime that a sharp-eyed young collector noticed felt slightly heavier than normal when it was placed in her palm, and that tactile instinct, that physical sensation of a coin that was just slightly wrong in the most wonderful way possible, led to a chain of events that included professional grading, expert authentication, years of research into its specific error characteristics, and ultimately a sale that changed the financial lives of the seller, made the buyer the owner of one of the most extraordinary coins in American history, and sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community that are still being felt today. Think about what it means for a coin to be worth $53 million in the context of everything it represents. It is not just metal. It is not just a minting error. It is a physical artifact of one of the most celebrated years in American history, born in the crucible of a bicentennial celebration that captivated an entire nation, flawed in ways that make it unique among the billions of coins produced that year, and preserved against all odds to stand as a testament to the beauty that can emerge from imperfection. And when you hold a 1976 Roosevelt dime in your hand, even an ordinary one, you are holding a piece of that history, a tiny circular window into a moment when America stopped to celebrate itself, and the mint, in the midst of all that celebration, accidentally created something that 200 years from now will still be considered one of the most extraordinary coins ever to emerge from the American minting process. If you want to examine your own 1976 Roosevelt dimes for the characteristics that might indicate an extraordinary specimen, here is exactly what you need to do. Start by weighing the coin if you have a precise digital scale, because the transitional error specimens will register noticeably heavier than the standard 2.268 grams. And even a small discrepancy of a few tenths of a gram is worth investigating further. Then examine the obverse under strong magnification, looking for doubling in. Roosevelt's portrait, particularly around his eye, his ear, the lettering of "I in God we trust," and the date numerals, which in the rarest specimens show a clear and dramatic doubling that is visible even without magnification under the right lighting conditions. Then look at the surface of the coin for any discoloration or tonal variation that might indicate a non-standard planchet composition, because the transitional planchets often display subtle but distinctive colorational differences from standard dimes. And finally, examine the reverse for any areas of weakness or missing detail that would indicate a struck through grease error, paying particular attention to the torch flame, the text along the rim, and the fine details of the olive and oak branches. And if your coin shows two or more of these characteristics, please do not spend it, do not clean it, do not handle it any more than necessary. Place it in a protective holder and contact a professional numismatic grading service immediately, because what you might be holding is not just a dime, but a piece of history worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. And so here we are, at the end of today's incredible journey through four of the most extraordinary Roosevelt dimes ever to emerge from the United States Mint. We started with the 2002 P and its $34 million price tag that seemed impossible until we met the 1995 P at $40 million, which was itself eclipsed by the 1989 D at $46 million. And now we stand at the summit with the 1976 Roosevelt Dime and its staggering $53 million value. And what I hope you take away from this video is not just the numbers, not just the excitement of the dollar figures, but the deeper truth that these coins represent, which is that history hides in the most ordinary places, that fortune can exist in the palm of your hand without announcing itself, and that the knowledge to recognize extraordinary things in seemingly ordinary circumstances is the most valuable tool any collector or any curious person can possess. Thank you so much for staying with us through this entire video, for trusting CoinExeVault to bring you the most extraordinary stories in the world of rare coins. If you found this video valuable, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might have a jar of old dimes sitting somewhere in their home. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another discovery like the ones we shared today. And most importantly, go check your coins, because somewhere out there, in a drawer, in a jar, in an old coat pocket, one of these extraordinary Roosevelt dimes might be waiting for you. And when you find it, you will know exactly what it is worth.